For word of the day, hopefully you won yourself something nice. Thanks to Troy for doing such a great job, and congratulations to the lucky winner or winners. This is Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis, and this is the Anthony Davis Show on Backchannel every day from 9 a.m. Pacific. That's 12 o'clock Eastern. It's the only place you can listen to, watch, and chat with hosts of live shows right here on your device. So, and don't forget you can tune in each week for your chance to chat and play and win at the very least, and impress your friends with an endless vocabulary on Word of the Day. So get in the game. What do you have to lose other than your dignity? So jump in there. Word of the Day returns next Wednesday at 9 o'clock Pacific. That's 12 o'clock Eastern. Regarding this show, and now we're going to discuss the climate emergency despite a truncated program today. It's just truncated. It'll be packed and informative, bringing you all the information you need from across the United States to keep you up to date with what's happening across the nation. Now, we're going to have a climate emergency, not a climate change special, climate emergency. And I'll explain how the melting ice caps could fuel another pandemic, even. And if you're not convinced, well, we could take it closer to home. Look at Jamestown, Virginia, the birthplace of democracy in America, and one of the most important historic sites in the land. Well, it's disappearing under floodwaters, and experts claim it has about 5 years left before it's completely submerged. Colorado, Connecticut, Idaho, Alabama, Arizona, Texas, they all have historic places that are now on the endangered list. So we'll be looking at that together. And to counter the devastating climate findings, which Ron DeSantis doesn't believe exists, we'll lighten things up at the end of the show with the grassroots phenomenon of May the 4th. And may the 4th be with you. I'll explain the inside story and cultural history of the Star Wars Galaxy's fan holiday. And I am a bit of a Star Wars nut. I don't know if you're aware of this, but it is something that, I used to play a game. I had a book of the script from Star Wars, the original first episode, which was called A New Hope, episode 4. And I would give it to friends, and I would say, open it on any page and read a line, and I'll read you the line before it, and I'll recite the line before it and the line after it in the voices. That's how much of a Star Wars nut I am. Big fan. In fact, I'm kind of looking forward to this new Obi-Wan Kenobi series on Disney+. The Book of Boba Fett, not so good. This new one, not so good. We thought it would be like The Mandalorian, which was brilliant. Everyone loved The Mandalorian. Book of Boba Fett, poor man's Mandalorian. But I'm looking forward to this new one, the Obi-Wan Kenobi, because Ewan McGregor will reprise his role as Ben Kenobi. And guess who they're bringing back to play Anakin Skywalker? Not Hayden Christensen. Yes. Hayden Christensen. I think he might be Canadian. He was the actor that played Anakin in the second and third prequels. And he was famed for being over-dramatic. Do you remember? People said, his acting was over-dramatic. He played alongside Natalie Portman, you may remember. Yeah, and I never had a problem with his acting. I had a problem with the script and the direction, but I never had a problem with his acting. Anyway, I think it's nice for him to have a job so soon after 1997. So I think it might be his first job. Zuo's joined us. Hello, Zuo. Stable Buzzard is here. Stacey's here. Vacuum is here. Armando is here. Marley is here. Marley says, it's nice. I haven't seen you in a while. Molly, hello. Thank you for being with us. So pleased that you're here. Thank you for spending your time with Backchannel. Zuo just dropped in as well. If you've got a Echo show, you can hit the subscribe button. Very important. And it would be great that, we can then, you can be like a VIP. If you're a subscribed person, you're like a VIP. Let's jump on some of the morning papers. The Star Tribune this morning, or the Casper Star Tribune for Wyoming. Leak doesn't halt clinic plans is the headline. Yes, it says the planned Casper abortion clinic is still scheduled to open this summer, despite a leaked draft opinion showing the U.S. Supreme Court is poised to overturn Roe v. Wade, the facility's founder, Julie Burkhart, said on Tuesday. Abortion remains legal in Wyoming, she said, while the Supreme Court may be poised to strike a devastating blow to abortion access in Wyoming and across the country. We firmly maintain our resolve that to ensure that people of this state can get the health care that they need. So there it is. I mean, the reality is that this is definitely going to happen, isn't it? This is definitely going to happen. And they will effectively ban abortion. There was a very interesting piece in the Daily Beast today, written by Max Burns, who I'm actually going to interview in a couple of weeks' time. Not here, elsewhere, but I'm kind of very interested to talk to him. He has written this very interesting piece. The headline is "Republicans' Outrage Over the Roe v. Wade SCOTUS Leak is a Cynical Ploy to Excuse January 6." Very interesting analysis. He said Republicans spent decades building the right-wing judicial machinery that enabled this week's devastating Supreme Court draft decision that, when made official, would overturn nearly 50 years of abortion rights in America. He said, but you'd be hard-pressed to find a single Republican lawmaker eager to celebrate by what by any measure is a generational victory for anti-abortion rights conservatives. Instead, Washington's political media is abuzz with a race to uncover who leaked the court's draft plan. And no one is more outraged than Senate Republicans, who lined up on Tuesday to condemn the leak as a dangerous attack on democracy itself. It's very clever what they've done here. He says, by every indication, he's quoting Mitch McConnell, by every indication, this was yet another escalation in the radical left's ongoing campaign to bully and intimidate federal judges and substitute mob rule for the rule of law, said Mitch McConnell in a statement, without offering even a hint of evidence to support his incendiary crime. Lindsey Graham, it's a sad day for the Supreme Court, a dangerous day for the rule of law. He said the radical left is hell-bent on reshaping institutions that have stood in the way of the outcomes they desire. Ted Cruz said it was a left-wing clerk responsible for the leak, a character Cruz made up out of thin air, because we have no idea who leaked the draft. And he said they will be prosecuted and serve real jail time. This is the same Ted Cruz who publicly apologized for calling the January 6th insurrection a terrorist attack after Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz accused him of disloyalty to the MAGA movement. And that's the point. A mob of Trump supporters attacked the Capitol on January 6th after the Republican president perpetuated the big lie that the election was stolen, told them to fight like hell. Then 147 congressional Republicans voted to oppose certifying the election results that very night. I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. A few weeks later, 43 Republican senators voted to acquit Trump at his second impeachment, including McConnell, who said Trump was practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of January 6, which he also called terrorism. Republican efforts to muddy the waters around the violent January 6 attack began even as the insurrection was unfolding, as we're now discovering, with text message evidence outlining how Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham from Fox sent panicked text messages to the White House while publicly downplaying the attempt by the far right to overthrow the transfer of power. You see, the GOP's moral outrage over the Supreme Court leak isn't just cynical, it's factually inaccurate because there are no known facts to work with. So they're rewriting history while pinning the blame for Supreme Court leak on an unnamed and possibly non-existent agent of the shadowy radical left. And this is the reality. They are loving this, Now it could backfire, of course, because the timing of this is going to mean that people are going to vote like hell at the midterms. It's very interesting. Joe Biden, back to the newspapers now, Star Tribune. President blasts radical draft. Yes, Biden on Tuesday blasted a radical Supreme Court draft opinion that would throw out the landmark Roe v. Wade abortion rights ruling that has stood for half a century. The court cautioned no final decision was made, but Biden warned that other privacy rights, including same-sex marriage and birth control, are at risk if the justices follow through. John Roberts said he ordered an investigation into what he called the egregious breach of trust in leaking the draft document, which was dated to February. I mean, This is another reason, along with the insurrection, that the Democrats need to abolish the filibuster. Very simple. You need to break the rules to make the rules. And they won't do it. And Biden yesterday said he wouldn't do it. What does it take? Because, the filibuster basically enables them to get the votes that they need fundamentally to pass legislation. And at the moment they can't, because they are literally, it's a tie at the moment, 50-50. And Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, neither of them will play ball with anything, because they're effectively Republicans, So this is the reality for Democrats right now. They've got a president who is institutionalized, can't get his head round changing the rules of Congress, because he's been there for 150 years. That's the problem. He's not an abolitionist. He's not one of these people who comes in and he won't go down in history as being a great change maker. Protesters worry about reproductive restrictions. It says 36 people gathered across the public library in Lander on Tuesday evening, demonstrating response to leaked Supreme Court draft ruling that Roe v. Wade could be overturned. They stood on the street corner, both old and young, under stand of trees. Some held signs with slogans including "Abortion is healthcare," "My body, my choice," and "Mind your own womb." Several cars honked in support as they drove past. One truck passed multiple times, blaring a horn that sounded like a train. No counter-protesters. Interesting. Let's go to Wisconsin now, and the Portage Daily Register. Road to Rule campaigns, it says, less than 24 hours after a leaked draft opinion. The pending decisions transform the debate over what's at stake in Wisconsin's senatorial and gubernatorial elections. So, similar story. Russia storms plant in Mariupol. This is very serious and tragic because they didn't get everybody out, with the evacuation. They didn't get everybody out. And we're now hearing that theater, that theater that got bombed, despite the fact it had the words children written on the ground, front and back. They reckon there's 600 corpses in there. 600. I mean, some of the news coming out of Ukraine in the last 24 hours has been truly devastating. I mean, Russia isn't necessarily winning, but the cost is life and property. They are basically flattening the whole country. There'll be nothing left of that country. It said Russian forces on Tuesday stormed the steel mill containing the last pocket of resistance in Mariupol. Ukrainian defenders said just as scores of civilians evacuated from the bombed-out plant reached relative safety. Meanwhile, top Pentagon leaders told Congress on Tuesday the U.S. had learned a great deal about Russian military shortfalls and capabilities in the first 2 months of the war. But they warn that Moscow is learning from its mistakes as the war shifts to a new phase. And that will shape the artillery and other weapon systems the U.S. will provide. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, told a Senate Appropriations Subcommittee that if Congress approves funding, the most critical things that Ukraine needs are anti-tank, anti-aircraft, and shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles. Milley added that with the fighting now concentrated in the eastern Donbass region, Ukrainian forces also need more tanks and other mechanized vehicles, which the US and other nations are providing. So there we go. If you would like to comment on this or chat, and if you can see me right now and you're watching on an Echo Show or Fire TV, the magic word is say. So just wake up your device, say the word say, and then your message. If you're listening on an Echo speaker and you can't see me, go to backchannel.tv and click join the chat. That's backchannel.tv. God bless you, Governor. Let's see who's chatting right now. Choice Rattlesnake has dropped in. Hello, Choice. Wonderful to see you. Terry's in Missouri. Carol, he's here for the first time. Hi, Carol. Click the subscribe button if you'd like to. Rafi joined the stream as well. Zuo's here. Molly says it's been a while. Well, it really has been a while. I hope you're okay. I've been quite ill. I was actually so sick I couldn't even work on Monday. You know, I thought I had the coronavirus. Have you heard of that? It's like a pandemic that's going around. Killed 1 million Americans. Some people seem not to care. Oh, by the way, the CDC announced yesterday that even though there was that court case overturning their announcement that you had to wear a mask on planes and trains, they have new evidence to say you should wear a mask on planes and trains. Just so you know. I'm actually planning the masking because I'm going to be going to London in a few weeks' time, in 30 days, and I'm planning my masking because I want to be most comfortable, because it's an 11-hour flight, you know? So, and I bought a box of KN95s, and none of them fit me. I've tried on all 50 of them. None of them fit. It's like my ears are too far set back. And you know, if you're sitting on a plane for that long, you've got to have a comfortable N95. I think I might just have to spend some money and just buy like one really good mask. Alice, hi, in California. Welcome to Backchannel. Carla, I'm so excited about coming to see you now. I really am. Carla's the producer, by the way. She's right here. I've never met her, but we've known each other for a few years. And I am going to squeeze the living daylights out of her. Her eyes are going to pop out of her head. She's going to she'll be like, I preferred you on FaceTime, she's going to say to me. Where are we going to go eat? Should we go somewhere fancy? I do like Vietnamese, yes. I like the people, but not the food. No, I'm kidding. I would like to go to Vietnam. Have a think. I personally, when eating out in England, I am a fan of the voucher. You know, do you ever eat out with a voucher? No. So I'm a big fan of the voucher. So I might have a little look at some of the vouchers. Because, you know, I used to eat in the Savoy every week with a voucher. Do you know about this? I do too. But I'm saying, you know, and that's how I eat here. But in London, once a week, I would eat at the Savoy because you get a voucher. And it would be £22, and that would be for 3 courses and a glass of bubbly. Do you not know about this? Well, see, now you're not such a fan of the little family-run places after all. You're like, give me the Savoy. So that's where I was going to take you for a £22 meal down at the Savoy. Oh, yeah, I don't like those types of places. I don't like anywhere that's like a bit sceney or where, you know, you're going to be seen. The Savoy has a restaurant out the back. This is the Savoy Hotel. It's one of the nicest hotels. Has a restaurant out the back that is it's like a seafood restaurant. And no one ever goes in there because it's so far down the back, no one ever gets that far because there's like 3 restaurants en route. And it's called Casper's. You should look it up. It's called Casper's Oyster Bar. And maybe we should go to Casper's, because I love it there. Well, you'll never get me in an elevator. She's saying that it has good elevators. I don't go in elevators. Yeah, I won't. I'll come and look at it with you, but I'm not. I'll shove you in it and send you up the elevator and meet you on the 2nd floor. Oh, you bumped into Anthony Hopkins. Last time I was in the Savoy, I bumped into Piers Brosnan. How good is that? We should definitely go. Yeah, look up Casper's and see if it's still open. Because, you know, they change these things all the time. I haven't been there for 5 years. But, you know, anyway. That aside, let's get back to American newspapers instead of talking about London hotels. Just making my travel plans here on Backchannel. Oh no! That was where I used to go all the time. It's closed. They've shut it down. They've shut it down. You know why? It's because I moved to America and I was literally the only customer. And I was on a voucher. That is such a shame. Clandestine clinics is the headline on the front of the Portage Daily Register this morning. They lead with, if the US Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade, It says Wisconsin reverts to an 1849 state law banning abortions. Providers might set up an abortion clinic just over the Illinois state line, or clandestinely provide abortions using pills, a Madison doctor said on Tuesday. I mean, this is so antiquated. I feel like we're having this conversation and it's like 1957. Do you know what I mean? It's like, they're talking about, using pills. I mean, come on. It's 2021, for goodness sake. But, it's not going to stop at this. This is the problem. Once this starts to get underway, they'll ban same-sex marriage. They'll ban anything that isn't cisgender, white Christian will get banned. Anything. And then what will happen? And I predicted this, Carla, and you keep saying that it's not going to happen, and I'm telling you it is. All of the people who are not white Christian nationalists and neo-fascists are going to move to democratic states. And there'll be this shift. Of course, then you throw climate change into the mix, and there'll be some states you can't even go to at all because it'll be too hot to live there, or too flooded to live there, or too tornado-y to live there. This is what's happening now. I'm Anthony Davis. This is Backchannel. If you're enjoying the show, there's two ways you can support the show. If you're watching right now and you can see the subscribe button on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, click it, because that will turn you into a VIP. And we've got some plans coming up for our VIPs, so do join in with the subscribe button. Another way you can help us out, no matter where you're watching or listening, is by leaving a review. So just go to backchannel.tv and click Leave a Review. And your positive reviews help keep this show going. That's backchannel.tv and click Leave a Review. Stacy says 2022. No, it's not 2022. What are you talking about? It's 2021. I know what year it is. I'm still waiting for the millennium bug to break my computer. When's that going to happen? Do you remember that? At midnight, you literally could... Everybody waited for their computers to I don't know, erase themselves or get a bug or something. The Y2K bug, they called it. Do you remember that? That was 22 years ago. 22 years ago, we sat there thinking that our computers wouldn't be able to switch from 1999 to 2000 without breaking. I love the fact that that was a thing. And nothing happened. Nothing happened. Vacuum's joined us from New York State. Welcome. Alice is here as well. Stacey says you can go on the Alexa app and go on the Backchannel skill there and leave a review there. Yes, you can. Absolutely. Molly, what's happening with you? Maybe we can chat, Send me some messages. It'd be nice to talk to you. Lawmakers calling it quits at near record. It says the number of Wisconsin state lawmakers hanging it up this year is near a modern-day high and can even exceed the record set during World War II. Yes, the mass exodus comes amid uncertainty over legislation and legislative boundaries due to a redistricting fight, an ever more partisan political environment, and years of animosity between majority Republicans and minority Democrats. 30 incumbents have announced they will retire, won't seek re-election, or are running for another office. That's a quarter of the 118 lawmakers up for re-election. 13 Republicans and 10 Democrats in the Assembly are leaving. 4 Republicans and 3 Democrats in the Senate are out. I mean, is it any wonder? Who wants to be in politics right now? It's horrific. Horrific. Okay, to the Post-Crescent next. They lead with options for Mother's Day brunch in the Fox cities. It says, will you be doing a list of Mother's Day brunches? When is Mother's Day? Isn't that like in a couple of days? Or is it this Sunday? Maybe it's this Sunday. I need to look it up. I need to do something about it. Yeah, it's this Sunday. Mother's Day. I know I missed the English one, and it was embarrassing that I missed the English Mother's Day because my mum texts me and she's like, hello. And that's the problem when you move, you forget that there's different celebrations going on in different countries. So I made it up to my mum in other ways, I sent her £10 and I said, go have a drink. I sent her a voucher to go to Casper's Champagne and Oyster Bar. And when she got there, it was closed. There's a story about Corcorna's statue. It says in 2000, Corcorna High School principal Barbara Fox McCurdy said the bronze galloping ghost statue planned near the entrance to the new school was meant to give students a sense of the past. But then, and since then, some community members have said the statue evokes a different historical image from the one intended. Depicting a ghost with its arm raised in the air riding a horse, the statue is meant to portray the school's longtime mascot. Some say the hooded figure resembles a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Questions about the statue's appropriateness arose again on January, where a group of current students asked the school board to remove it. In response, the district determined 3 potential options for the statue's future, according to an emailed statement from the superintendent. The first is to leave the statue as it is. The second is to add a sign in front that says, "Welcome to the home of the galloping ghost." And the third is to relocate it away from the front entrance of the school. Oh, man. The school board is expected to make a decision by the end of June. While many social media comments have criticized the students' concerns, pushing back against the notion that a depiction of the school's beloved mascot could be reasonably construed as racist, the students argue that removing the statue would better reflect the inclusive and welcoming environment they know Corcorna to be. Well, the thing is, if you look at the statue, you see, the thing is, the statue is in bronze, right? So you can't see. I mean, I personally don't think it looks like a member of the Ku Klux Klan, and I'll tell you why. Because they had a pointy hat, and this person has just got a kind of hood, not a pointy hat in the same way. Or then maybe there were some hoods. That's right, maybe there were some hoods in the KKK. I'm not that familiar with the KKK uniforms. Please be aware of that. But maybe there were some hoods. Anyway, my point is, the way it's galloping, the way it looks, I would put the sign up. I would do the sign. I would say, "Welcome to the home of the galloping ghost." I don't think moving the statue is necessary. But I do understand the sentiment, and I do think that people are feeling quite, extra vigilant about these things now. So, just saying. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. It's a new service, only for visual device users. So if you've got an Echo Show, then you can hit that button located on the screen, and voila, you are connected to the show's activity. You've become a VIP. So bottom left, and you'll be reminded, and it's just a great way to kind of interact with the show. So hit the subscribe button. It's 10 o'clock here on the West Coast. It's 1 o'clock on the East Coast. I'm Anthony Davis. This is Backchannel. Should we do the US news update now? Is that what we should do? Because, the times are a little skewed today, obviously, because it's we have word of the day. But you won a voucher, so it can't be too bad. This is a podcast that I make every day that enables you to find out what's happening in the US, where you are across the country. So let's have a little listen to it, and if you like it, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Here it is. It's Wednesday, May 4. From the Volley Network, this is your daily US news update. I'm Anthony Davis. US President Joe Biden on Tuesday appealed to voters to protect rights by backing candidates who support them in November's elections, after a leaked Supreme Court draft showed it could soon overturn its 1973 decision legalizing abortion. Biden said his administration would respond once the Supreme Court formally rules, but stopped short of calling for more radical changes, including a push to have the Senate rules to allow a simple majority to pass a law guaranteeing access to abortions. The Senate is split 50-50 between Republicans and Biden's Democrats, with Vice President Kamala Harris able to break any tie. A draft Supreme Court decision leaked late on Monday showed a majority of justices prepared to overturn the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision that protects abortion rights. The court on Tuesday confirmed the authenticity of the leaked document. The ruling piles more pressure on Biden, who is already grappling with the US's response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine and efforts to tamp down high inflation at home. Biden has previously sidestepped calls to expand the Supreme Court to add more left-leaning justices. Former President Trump, who had promised to appoint justices who would overturn abortion rights, was able to seat 3 jurists during his 4-year term, giving the court a 6-3 conservative majority. Biden on Tuesday pressed voters to send more candidates to Congress who support women's right to choose to get abortions. Your daily US news update is part of the Volley Network. To hear my live daily morning show, ask your Amazon Echo device to open Backchannel. There it is, the US news update. Get it wherever you get your podcast. Or if you play it again. I mean, I know it was good, but twice. I mean, come on. Yeah. So, listen, if you would like to subscribe, you know where to find it. Do the right thing. Do the right thing. I'm Anthony Davis. This is Backchannel. I'm here every weekday, Monday through Friday, from 9 o'clock Pacific. That's 12 o'clock Eastern. You can send a message if you can see me and you're watching on an Echo show or Fire TV right now. The magic word is say. So wake up your device, say the word say, and then your message. If you're just listening on an Echo speaker and you can't see me and you'd like to message, go to backchannel.tv, click join the chat. That's backchannel.tv. And welcome to you if you've just joined in. Vacuum is with us, and lots of no names. Alice, Choice Rattlesnake, Terry, Carol, Raffy, Zuo, Stable Buzzard, Molly, Armando, welcome. If you're in as a no name and you want to change your name to a name, your name or another name, then you can do that too. All you have to do is just tell your device to change your name. Easy. We're looking through the morning papers right now. We've been looking at what's going on. Let's go to Oregon next and the Statesman Journal. Hang on a second, let me just get it up here. Here we go. The Statesman Journal leads with 17-year-old could be tried as an adult. This is a murder case, one of the few first under state's new juvenile reform law. Talking of juveniles, Carla, I watched the Jimmy Savile documentary. It's a 2-parter on Netflix. Wow. You need to watch it. Although you don't need to watch the first episode because you're British. If you're not British, then start with episode 1 and see episode 2, because episode 1 just tells you who this guy is. This was the most famous entertainer on British television and radio for 50 years. Right, from the early 60s right the way through to his death in like 2000. When did he die? Like 2007 or something like that? Anyway, maybe it was 2012. Maybe it was 2012 or 2000. Yeah, it was more recent. Anyway, and everybody loved him, including the royal family. The royal family actually were very close with him. And he did so much charity work. And there was always rumors that this guy could be a pedophile. Anyway, unfortunately, it wasn't until after his death that 400 people came forward. 400 people came forward. Which suggests that those were only the people that came forward. So it's probably at least 3 times that, the number of people that this guy abused. And it turned out, and this is what I found most interesting about the documentary. It's called Savile, History of a something. Anyway, it's dropped on Netflix. A 2-parter. This guy was a Catholic, and this is what's so interesting about it. The reason he did so much charity work was because he wanted to go to heaven. He didn't want to go to hell, and because in the back of his mind he knew that he was doing these terrible things. In order for him to go to heaven, he had to do good things to counteract the bad things. Had you thought about this, Carlo? It's incredible. As a Catholic, he wanted to repent, right? Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. So whenever he did this huge charity thing, there was a good chance that he'd been abusing. And this was the way, in his mind, that he must have compartmentalized his behavior. And this was happening on the BBC. The guy was abusing people on camera. This was one of the biggest scandals in British history. And they've just dropped on Netflix a 2-part series, documentary about him. If you're British and you know the story of him, then you can go to episode 2. But if you, because I watched episode 1, I was like, this is a bit slow. But that's because I know him. But now I understand. I didn't realize it was a series. I thought it was one episode. And so, anyway, if you're an American and you're interested in true crime, you want to know about this most prolific sex offender in England, who was also the most famous entertainer. It's the equivalent of Bill Cosby in America, right? But the difference is this guy potentially abused thousands and thousands of people. And also his abuse was macabre. I won't go into detail, obviously, because this is Backchannel. But his abuse was macabre. And, if you know the true meaning of that word, you'll understand what I'm talking about. He was freaky. And he looked weird. And everybody kind of knew that something might be going on. And nobody was able to nail this guy. And it wasn't until after he died that people had the confidence. I mean, the police screwed it up as well. The police had 3 victims who were prepared to testify, but they didn't tell each victim that there were other people testifying, so they all chickened out. Crazy. It's a huge thing. We've had some very interesting, if you're into true crime, we've had some very interesting stuff happen in the UK, Yeah. Got any favorite true crime things? I personally only like watching stuff that's like thrillery and a little bit, unnerving if it's true. I don't like to watch stuff that is going to terrify me if it's fiction. I don't see the point. I want to be educated. And that's why I think it's important to educate ourselves about people like Jimmy Savile. I mean, we had a doctor, the most prolific murderer in England was a doctor. And he would go round to old ladies' houses who were quite old and ill, and he would euthanize them. And he was the most prolific serial killer in British history. His name was Harold Shipman. He killed thousands of people and ended up killing himself. But isn't it interesting, you would expect somebody who's a prolific murderer to be to look like a murderer. This guy looked like a very nice, friendly, bearded, kind family doctor. And he was doing it for years. And he was the most prolific murderer in history. Isn't that crazy? Probably in the world, actually, if you think about it. I can't think of anybody that would have killed that many people. He would inject them with something, put them to sleep. And maybe he got off on being with them when they passed away or something. I don't know. But this was what he did. England is a small country, but I tell you something, it is weird. And then my other favorites. This is such a macabre conversation. My other favorites famously lived at 25 Cromwell Street. Remember those people? Do you remember who lived at 25 Cromwell Street, Carla? Come on. This was a couple. They made Hannibal Lecter seem like an amateur. These two. Come on, you can do it. Who lived at 25 Cromwell Street? No, not Myra Hindley. Come on. More recent than that. Hindley was in the 60s. This is more recent. I love that we're having a serial killer, sex offender, competition. It's so inappropriate. But, fundamentally, people are interested in true crime. 25 Cromwell Street, come on. You can do it. It's so good. You've taken a blank? Okay. Well, do you want me to give you a clue? They found 9 bodies buried there. Bodies buried there. It was a couple. It was a husband and wife. And they were so macabre that famously they made a soup out of humans. They were cannibals. Carla can't remember who it was. Shall I say? Do you want me to say? They were called Fred and Rosemary West. Yeah. So, again, you don't have to go to fiction to find the most horrific stories. They are there in history. And this couple, oh man. I mean, she actually looked a bit like Myra Hindley in a funny kind of way. But maybe it was just the style of the photographs. But this stuff goes on all around the world. And I was thinking about this because I was thinking about Russia and I was thinking about the Russian military who were going in and, performing these horrific executions of innocent civilians. I'm like, who can do that? And then, of course, you start to think about this. And you're like, unfortunately, this is what humans are capable of. You might not be and I might not be, but this is what some humans are capable of. Did you hear what happened last night at the Dave Chappelle concert in the Hollywood Bowl? Did you hear what happened? Someone got on stage with an imitation gun and basically tried to attack him. But what I found most interesting about this was that the security who failed in their job of preventing him from getting on the stage, because obviously that's the first line of defense, isn't it? You don't let anyone on the stage. When they got hold of this guy and they got him off Dave Chappelle and they took him to the back of the stage, they beat the living daylights out of him. They literally beat him to within an inch of his life, this guy. Like 6 guys. Now, and I was thinking about that culturally, is that appropriate? Is that appropriate? If your job is to guard somebody, protect them, then your job is to pull that person off. It's not your job to then beat the living daylights out of them, is it? It's like police officers that like to shoot people instead of just arresting them. What is it about? Is everybody so angry that the default is just to kind of attack? Is that the problem now, that everyone's so unhappy or poor or frustrated with the world or with, politics, or is that everyone's like default? There's just like so much anger. Like, let's just get this guy and beat the crap out of him. When I saw him on a stretcher being put in an ambulance, his shoulder wasn't even like in his body anymore. It was like around the back. How can you do that to another human? I just don't understand it. Now, I appreciate it was wrong for this guy to go up to Dave Chappelle and try and attack him on stage. Of course that's wrong. But you apprehend the guy. And you let the police... Well, if the police were there, they would have shot him. I mean, that's the other reality of this, isn't it? Tyler's here, Carol's here, Ginger's here. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining me. I hope the conversation isn't too explicit today. We're talking about some serious stuff. I'm Anthony Davis. This is Backchannel. We're live every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. Pacific to or 12 o'clock Pacific to 12 o'clock Eastern. Sorry, I just can't understand the time zones. 9 o'clock Pacific, 12 o'clock Eastern for 2 hours. And you can send me a message at any time. Send me your favorite serial killer. That's what it's come to right now. Who's your favorite? Look at that show Making a Murderer, right? That was also on Netflix. That was such a huge hit a couple of years ago. We were all compelled by that show, because it was true crime. It wasn't just the fact that it was good. It was the fact that it was true. And that's why it's so interesting. I love the fact that you just called Tiger King the Lion King. That might be the best thing I've heard all day. The Lion King, of course, being an Elton John musical. And the Tiger King is currently in prison. Well, I enjoyed Tiger King. I did. I binged it. I haven't seen they made a new one. I haven't seen that. Well, why don't you just watch The Lion King instead? Maybe you'll enjoy that a whole lot more, It's the circle of life. If you can see me now and you're watching on an Echo Show or a Fire TV, then the magic word is say. So wake her up, say the word say, and then your message, and you can message me. And if you're listening on an Echo speaker and you cannot see me, go to backchannel.tv and click join the chat. That's backchannel.tv and click join the chat. There you go. Do you know, I was also thinking about disaster movies and how popular they are in America. You know, where like things get blown up and like buildings collapse and there's dust and people run and scream and people love going to see these movies. And then I was like, why did they make... Have I had this conversation on Backchannel before? I feel like I've said it out loud before. Okay, well, no, it's not that I'm about to say. It's about the fact that I also watch the footage regularly of the 9/11 terror attacks. Because recently there was a new video of a guy who didn't know he still had a video. He was on a boat on the Hudson at the time, a celebratory party, and he was filming. And so this was a whole new angle. And there's so many documentaries. You know, there's that wonderful documentary about the falling man. Did you ever see that documentary about the falling man? A whole documentary about this one person, like following his history of who he was, because people jumped, as we know. Anyway, my point is that after 9/11, when we saw on video real footage of real people running away from a building or two buildings that had been attacked and that were falling, and there was smoke everywhere and dust and shrapnel and everything, and people were running for their lives. Why, after that happened, did Hollywood make a single disaster movie that depicted a similar scene that was fiction and done for entertainment? Do you see what I mean? Like, surely that would be a line in the sand where you'd be like, this actually happened. So why would we ever turn this into entertainment from this point onwards? I mean, that's the bit that I don't understand. Norbert has joined us. Hello, Norbert. Welcome. He's in New York and is bringing me a series of disaster movies that he's a fan of, and indeed mass murderers. So thank you. Son of Sam. I'm not familiar with Son of Sam. Jack the Ripper, I know very well because my whole family grew up. You know, my family are from Whitechapel, and that is where Jack the Ripper, you know, committed his atrocities. And Norbert also recommends The Towering Inferno. Yeah, but that was made, you know, before 9/11. But do you see my point about when it happens for real, why would you then continue to make entertainment that depicts the very thing where all these people lost their lives and is the most well-known stain on American history? Why would you depict that again and again as entertainment? Oh, David Berkowitz was Son of Sam. That was an American true crime. Was he a murderer? Mass murderer? I don't know of him. I'll be honest, I'm not very good at the American ones. I'm like an expert on the British ones. Norbert says yes. Thank you, Norbert. I mean, this is the weirdest quiz we've ever done here on Backchannel, and I apologize for that. But, you know, I also think that American people have a slightly higher threshold for this stuff than we do back in England, because it's so prolific. Like, shooting here is so prolific. Guns are so prolific. You know, that the whole violence is so prolific. No, but I'm not talking about that summit. I'm talking about violence, like as in, you know, there's shootings every day in America, you know, and we just don't have that in England. I don't know. I just feel like people are a little bit more accustomed to the idea of violence in the US because of the proliferation of firearms. That's all I'm saying. I have seen Peaky Blinders. Well, I've only seen a couple of episodes. A friend of mine, one of my best friends actually, played young Winston Churchill in that show. Do you remember that character? Yeah. This is Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis. I'm your host here, Monday through Friday, from 9 till 12 Pacific, 9 till 11 Pacific, from 12 till 2 Eastern. This is the only place on your Echo device where you can watch and listen to live shows and chat with hosts in real time. You can send a message, ask questions, chime in on what we're talking about, or anything else you want to send my way. Wake Up Your Echo show, say the magic word, which is say, and then your message. And you can communicate with me there. And if you're listening right now on an Echo speaker and you can't see me, go to backchannel.tv and click join the chat. Easy. That's how it works. That's backchannel.tv and click join the chat. Lots of people joining the chat. And Norbert says that David Berkowitz killed 8 people. Wow. I mean, you only need to kill more than one person for it to be considered a mass shooting, isn't that right? I think it needs to be two people and not turning the gun on yourself. I think that's how he was a serial killer. In England, a serial killer is like somebody who lies, like kills their victims and puts them in a bath full of milk and Cheerios. That's a serial killer in England, just floating in a bath full of Cheerios. Let's go back to the newspapers. Where were we? Tulsa, Oklahoma. Stitt signs fetal heartbeat bill. Yes, here we go. The fetal heartbeat, which is not really a heartbeat, it's just electrical activity using a machine that is very, very sensitive. It says on the same day, the U.S. Supreme Court confirmed that it will be prepared to overturn Roe v. Wade. Governor Kevin Stitt signed the latest piece of abortion-banning legislation to arrive on his desk. The measure would ban abortions at the detection of a fetal heartbeat, usually in about 6 weeks, or before most women know they're pregnant. That is not a heartbeat. The Republicans have redefined what is a heartbeat, Every clinician and doctor, and also those that specialize in doing ultrasound, they say it is not a heartbeat at 6 weeks. He said, I am proud to sign SB 1503, the Oklahoma Heartbeat Act, into law. I want Oklahoma to be the most pro-life state in the country because I represent all 4 million Oklahomans who overwhelmingly want to protect the unborn. Meanwhile, reaction to a leaked U.S. Supreme Court draft opinion on a current challenge to Roe v. Wade was swift and varied. House Minority Leader Emily Virgin, ironically, stressed the opinion is only a draft. Well, turns out that if it was only a draft, then they wouldn't be getting so upset about it. Biden blasts radical draft overruling Roe would have major ramifications, the president warns. Also, Earth turned for new Gilcrease Museum. Official donors and students take part in the groundbreaking. I do love a museum. Terry has messaged as well. He says, Anthony, it's not pro-life, it's pro-birth because they don't want to take care of the child after it's born. Yeah. It's also backward, I respect everybody's views, but, the point is that these views are becoming so extremist, and that's what's so terrible. It's like the right... I saw somebody post on Twitter yesterday, and they said 8 men decided Roe v. Wade in 1973. How's it any different now? Right? What 8 men decided is that it was a woman's right to choose. That's what they decided. 8 men gave women the right to choose. There's not, they don't care for any of the aftercare or anything like that. I mean, why don't they just make it mandatory for men to get vasectomies? Reversible vasectomies. And they go, okay, that's mandatory now. Can you imagine them doing that? Mandatory reversible vasectomies. Every man has to have a vasectomy, but if you want to have a child, then you get your surgery to have it reversed, then you have a child, and then you get it put back again. I wonder how many of the male senators that are signing legislation left, right, and center would feel about that. mandatory vasectomy. I think it's a very good idea. Tyler's joined the show as well. Tyler, welcome. Great to hear you. Bumpy Aardvark is here as well. You can click subscribe if you'd like to. Send me a message on any of these conversations that we're having. Let's move on to the Daily Record for New Jersey. Biden blasts radical road draft. Same story. Russia storms Mariupol steel plant, as we've already discussed. And famous paparazzo dies at 91 in Montville. Ron Galella, a paparazzo famous for a windswept, candid shot of Jackie Kennedy Onassis, and a literal sparring partner to Richard Burton and Marlon Brando, died on Saturday at his home in Montville at the age of 91. His photographs have graced the walls of MoMA and the Tate in London. His book Disco Years, which documented the celebrity culture at New York City Studio 54, was named the best photography book of 2006 by the New York Times. Oh, that's a shame. So I do love those types of pictures. They're so interesting, aren't they? Let's go to the Chronicle Telegram now for Vance wins GOP Senate primary. This is Hillbilly Elegy author J.D. Vance won Ohio's contentious and hyper-competitive GOP Senate primary on Tuesday, buoyed by Donald Trump's endorsement in a race that was an early test for the former president's hold on his party at the midterm season kicks into high gear. So there we go. And what else? Dewine versus Whaley this November. This is the Ohio governor race. Republican Mike Dewine, he won his party's nomination for a second term in office. He'll face Democrat Nan Whaley this fall, after he overcame conservative anger of his strict pandemic policies and notable rifts with former President Trump. Attorney brings in 62% of Democratic vote. This is Democrat voters chose attorney and magistrate Melissa Kobasher as their nominee to replace the retiring Lorain County Common Pleas Judge Mark Beletsky in Tuesday's primary. And voter turnout dips slightly. Less than a quarter of the registered voters in Lorain County hit the polls on Tuesday. Less than a quarter? I mean, how are people not voting right now? I find it fascinating. To the Statesville Record now. They lead with Statesville takes step towards preserving black neighborhood. 38 places in Statesville listed on the National Register of Historic Places, but the only one that can be said definitively preserves black history in the city. That could soon change if a group of residents successful in their efforts to add areas along Garfield Street and Green Street, which were home to important buildings and people in Statesville's black community. So there we go. It's interesting. A step towards preserving the black neighborhood. ISS board considers limiting out-of-district enrollment, and residents wary of housing development to be annexed by Statesville. That's the Record and Landmark for Statesville. Obviously, Statesville said Statesville about 12 times. Santa Fe, New Mexican, draft abortion ruling signals political shift. Biden Dems vow to make issue defining for midterm elections. Interesting. Who's joined us? Oh, JD says good morning from Washington. JD, hello. Thank you for messaging. I think JD's using backchannel.tv to message. You can do the same. Just go to www.backchannel.tv to send a message if you'd like to. Loved Wolf is in. Tyler's in as well. Terry and Norbert and Trisha. Carol, Ginger, welcome to everybody who's joining us here on Backchannel. Seeking relief as wildfire rages, Governor requests federal aid to better fight flames and assist people forced to flee the blazes in Santa Fe as well, New Mexico. Yes, there's huge plumes of smoke visible over the mountains north of Interstate 25. Officials estimate 277 structures, including at least 166 homes, were destroyed earlier. Firefighters continue to battle the Hermit's Peak and Calf Canyon fire on Tuesday. Okay, let's move on to another one. Where do we go? Oh, I think we've done all the papers. That's good. Okay. A little reminder while we're here, while we can, that if you'd like to send me a message, you can see me right now, then you're watching on an Echo Show or a Fire TV. The magic word is say. Wake up your device, say the word say, and then your message. If you're just listening on an Echo speaker and you can't see me and you'd like to send a message, go to backchannel.tv and click join the chat. That's backchannel.tv and click join the chat. There you go. Okay, let's talk a little bit about... should we go on to the climate emergency? Should we do that one right here? This is one of the most important historic sites in America, has been put on a list of endangered places. Preservation groups warn that Jamestown, Virginia may not survive another generation because, of climate change. In 1607, the small island near the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay became the first successful English colony. It's often described as the birthplace of both democracy and slavery in America. But the tides of the James River are becoming higher and more damaging, and the water table is rising. And storms are more frequent and severe, causing dangerous floods, multiple challenges, and they're all related to climate change, according to James Horn, who's president of the Jamestown Rediscovery Foundation. Essentially, he said, we can't get rid of the water. The threat from water is nothing new. The James River has already eroded the western part of the island settlement, and until digging began in 1994, it was erroneously believed that the original fort was already underwater. Archaeologists have since evacuated most of the fort and recovered millions of artifacts. In 2013, they found evidence of cannibalism during the brutal winter of 1609, known as the Starving Time. And in 2015, they discovered the skeletal remains of the first settlers there. But climate change is accelerating the pace of erosion and flooding, jeopardizing the site as well as further research and the potential for future discoveries. Because of the rate of change, we estimate that a good portion of the fort and surrounding area will be underwater within 35 years, said Mr. Horn. He said there's basically a 5-year window at Jamestown. If we don't begin to address the issues within that 5-year window, mitigating the impact of climate change becomes exponentially harder. This can't wait another 10 or 15 years. This is about right now. So work to repair the 100-year-old seawall is expected to start soon, and plans are underway to overhaul the drainage system and install protective berms with pumps. The projects will cost tens of millions of dollars, and funding is urgently needed. They say Jamestown is particularly important because of its multi-layered and conflicting cultural importance. When the settlers arrived in 1607, they encountered the Powhatan people, launching a complex and often violent relationship with the indigenous tribes. In 1619, the first General Assembly was held, the beginnings of democratic government in America, based on the rule of law and individual freedoms. And a few months later, slavery was established in the new colony when a ship carrying captives from Angola arrived at its shores. Well, Jamestown is not the only site on the list that is endangered by climate change. Olivewood Cemetery in Houston, Texas, one of the oldest known African-American cemeteries, contains more than 4,000 graves and was incorporated in 1875, 10 years after slavery ended in Texas, when federal troops took control of the state at the end of the American Civil War. And now I'm unmuted. I apologize for that. I was just coughing, and I didn't want you to hear it. So you could watch me cough, but you just couldn't listen to me cough. And if you want to listen to me cough, then you have to pay. Then you literally have to, to pay cash. They call it Coughs for Cash. It's a whole other show that I'm planning at the moment. So let's look at the other endangered places in the US that are endangered due to climate change. It's very frustrating to me that none of these are in Florida, Why are none of these in Florida? Because, Ron DeSantis in Florida is a climate change denier. It would be so important for Florida to see the full impact of climate change. Anyway, there's the Brown Chapel AME Church in Selma, Alabama, Camp NACO in Arizona, the Chicano Community Murals of Colorado, the Deborah Chapel in Hartford, Connecticut, the Francisco Sanchez Elementary School in Guam, the Minidoka National Historic Site in Idaho, Picture Cave in Missouri in Warren County, Brooks Park Home and Studios in East Hampton, New York, Palmer Memorial Institute in Sedalia, North Carolina, Olivewood Cemetery in Texas, and Jamestown, Virginia. Other sites, which include a Japanese internment camp, an artist's house, and a cave sacred to Native Americans, are threatened by neglect, development, and private ownership. I just don't think that people understand what climate change really is. I just don't think they understand. And, more and more announcements are being made, events, things that are happening that are really, let me just read you a little something from something here that I was reading earlier I think you might be interested in. It's another piece from my friend Umair Haque. You may remember I've spoken about him before. He's a very, excellent journalist. He writes about these types of things. Where we go? Here we go. And he has written an article called The Age of Cataclysm. Right? The Age of Cataclysm. And he says human beings have never experienced what's beginning to happen to the planet, and we are not prepared. Apparently in Africa, this last weekend, it was 62 degrees Celsius in the Indian subcontinent. That's 143 degrees Fahrenheit. He says approximately 1.5 billion people, maybe 20% of humanity, lives there. And every summer now, the temperature is only going to rise. He says we're on the cusp of something that is unthinkable, beyond our capacity to really imagine or our words to express. We call it climate change so far, but that really is not an accurate description of it at all, of what we face in our lived reality. What we're about to live through is a cataclysm which human memory has no record of, nothing compares to, because humanity has never experienced what we're about to go through. He says climate change serves to neatly hide really beginning to understand all this. This is about us, not just abstract things like temperature anymore. It's about life and death. It's about how civilizations collapse. He says we're at the we're the merest beginning of this cataclysm, which is of a scale that we cannot even yet imagine, and yet is already beginning to happen faster than we can comprehend. This will be the single greatest cataclysm in human history, all of it. Nobody's ever experienced anything remotely like what we're about to. It will be worse than all the wars and atrocities in human history put together, all the depressions and dislocations. It will make all the previous struggles in history look easy. He says we can't yet imagine any of this. It's beyond us still. Our culture doesn't help us. It's made of Marvel movies, not stories which explain the sure trajectory to follow. Our society is tuned out of this as a result. Our economies tell us all we are to do is work at meaningless jobs, which makes billionaires richer, and never think about our plight, so we don't. I mean, that's what I was saying about the Marvel movies earlier in 9/11, and, just like wanting to recreate catastrophes as entertainment. I mean, where are all the movies about climate change? Where's all the documentaries about climate change that should be winning at the Oscars? He says to even begin to express the scale and scope of the greatest cataclysm in human history, let's go backward before we go forward. Nearly every civilization in history has some kind of strange memory, one of a catastrophic age, a great flood, pandemics, failing harvests, wars, and the civilization which precedes theirs falling as a result. That is a good way to begin to think about it. We need to go back to mythology to understand this, because those are the only stories of an event of this scale. He talks about Mount Vesuvius, the great earthquakes, The great volcanoes. He said the cataclysm to come will go something like this. The temperature will rise 62 degrees Celsius or 43 degrees Fahrenheit is where we already are. Where is the absolute limit of human habitability? We don't know for sure. At some point, water itself can't condense anymore. Kiss air conditioning goodbye, he says. It won't work. 150 degrees, 160 degrees, almost certainly. He says at this rate, we will be at that temperature in the world's equatorial regions, possibly by the end of this decade. Fact 2, most of the world's population lives there. Fact 3, those temperatures are on the verge of unsurvivable. If you're caught in them, there's a pretty good chance you will not survive the next 24 hours. The implications of all this are straightforward, and yet they seem completely impossible to us even now, because we can't grasp the scale of what is to come. Many of these regions are going to be uninhabitable. The Indian subcontinent, much of the Middle East, much of Australia, the list goes on. Billions of people are going to flee. But where will they go? Well, first they'll head to the nearest mountains and highlands, but of course there's not nearly enough room there for everyone. Those regions will be contested, doubtly because they will be the last remaining source of water. We have never seen a world like this one that is to come. Billions of people fleeing for their lives, not millions, but billions, and yet the story has just barely begun. He says the mountains and highlands can't contain the billions who will be displaced. Rich countries will hardly make room for them. The inevitable conclusion is that there's going to be an event. We don't even have a word for any of this. But all of this will culminate in a series of things which we'll just call the event. A great dying like never before in human history. Of these displaced billions, a very large fraction are going to perish. I mean, this is the reality that we're facing, and yet Ron DeSantis refers to climate change as a Democrat thing. He's politicizing it. A little bit like the politicization of the pandemic, and yet 1 million people in America died, and 5 million people around the world died. And yet people still think it's a bit of a joke here. As the Earth's climate continues to warm, researchers predict wild animals will be forced to relocate their habitats, likely to regions with large human populations, dramatically increasing the risk of a viral jump of a disease to humans that could lead to another pandemic. So this is what's to come. A link between climate change and viral transmission is described by an international research team led by scientists at Georgetown University. It was published last week in Nature. So if you think the pandemic was a fluke, there's a very good chance that coronavirus came about because the planet warmed, because of our carbon emissions over the last 30 or 40 years. Or since the Industrial Revolution. Wouldn't it be interesting if, instead of blaming the Chinese people in Wuhan, and incidentally, Asian hate crime in America is through the roof. There is more anger and hatred towards the Asian community now than ever before. So this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with, there's a good chance that they'll turn around to us and say this pandemic was due to climate change. And of course, you know what's going to happen? The right wing, Republicans, are going to turn around and say, well, they want you to think that because they want to take away your cars. They want to prevent you from your freedom. And so that will encourage another pandemic. This is what we're going to end up with. We're just going to be in this perpetual slow, it's going to be like a slow death as the planet burns. I mean, carbon emissions are up. They're not even down. I wouldn't mind, but all of this rhetoric, I feel so sorry for Greta Thunberg because she knew all this. And how is it that there is only one climate change activist in the whole world that we can name? Why is that? Why is there only one person who is a young girl, and the only reason she can see the future is because she's on the spectrum, and she has a brain that is wired that she can focus on one thing with immense detail. It takes somebody like her who is superhuman to be able to communicate this, and yet no one's listening. People just laugh her off as being a kid and being a joke. And yet this is the reality, that the temperatures are already unsurvivable. This last weekend it was 62 degrees Celsius. That's 143 degrees Fahrenheit in the Indian subcontinent. Bangalore, Mumbai, New Delhi, Islamabad, Kathmandu. Now, tragically, in America, a lot of people won't care about that because they'll be like, oh, well, that's, what Trump referred to as an S-hole country. Brown people. What do they matter? Some people, not all people, but some people, an increasing number, tragically, maybe a third of the population of America, will have that view. Oh, well, that's Africa. What does it matter? But it's happening here as well. I mean, here in California, Ventura County has already warmed by 3.8 degrees Celsius. They're trying to keep it at 1.5. It's already at 3.8. Just saying. It's already happening. If you're enjoying the show, then don't forget you can press the subscribe button and support the show that way. Be a VIP. The other thing you can do if you're watching or listening wherever is by leaving a review. So go to backchannel.tv, click leave a review. Your positive reviews keep this show going. That's backchannel.tv. I'm Anthony Davis. This is Backchannel. It's the only place on your Echo device where you can watch and listen to live shows and chat with hosts in real time. I'm here every Monday through Friday from 9 o'clock Pacific, that's 12 o'clock Eastern. You can send a message, ask questions, chime in on what we're talking about, or anything else you want to send my way. So wake up your device, say the word say, and then your message. If you're listening on a Echo show, if you're on an Echo speaker and you can't see me, go to backchannel.tv and click join the chat and send your message that way. You can also send reviews as well. It's May the 4th today, of course, which is Star Wars Day, as you know. And like anything that emerges from the collective passion of a group of people, the Star Wars fan holiday each year has no single point of origin. It has no official commencement year, no formal dedication. It is a grassroots phenomenon that now transcends the English language pun that inspires it. Around the world, May the 4th be with you is more ubiquitously known as Star Wars Day. The earliest users of the phrase May the 4th be with you that have evidence for a date. They suggest 1978, the year after the first Star Wars release, A New Hope. By then, Star Wars was firmly established within popular culture here in America and became like a handshake, as Professor Leo Braudy would later comment in the documentary Empire of Dreams. That summer of 78, clever newspaper writers used the phrase as a gimmick to mark Independence Day celebrations on the 4th of July. May the 4th be with you, as heard in A New Hope, had been appearing on licensed buttons, posters, and various items for months, enough to convince those writers that the joke would be well received by their readers. English-speaking audiences in the United Kingdom were familiar with it. It was on the May the 4th, 1979, that the first instance of May the 4th be with you being used to mark the earlier date took place. Britain's new Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, happened to assume office that day, and another clever newspaper, for the London Evening News, declared a full-page ad, May the 4th be with you, Maggie. At the time, Star Wars Empire Strikes Back was in production at Elstree Studios at the same time, which is interesting. I love the fact that Star Wars was pretty much made in England. Don't you think that's kind of cool? It's a bit like The Muppet Show. The Muppet Show was also made in England. It was made at Elstree Studios. But it was actually made at, I think it was made at BBC Elstree rather than Elstree Film Studios. I might be wrong. Just trying to remember. Anyway. Another lesser-known instance came from within Lucasfilm in 1982. Randy Tom, who today is the director of sound design at Skywalker Sound, and been with the company for over 40 years, worked as a location sound recordist on Revenge of the Jedi. Its title was, of course, later changed to Return of the Jedi. He joined the production unit in Northern California as they shot in the Redwood Forest, doubling for the moon of Endor. May the 4th, 1982 happened to be a working day, and Tom recalled thinking of the pun on his own when contemplating the date, and he shared it with others on the set, and will continue to write an annual message to the company declaring, "May the 4th be with you for years to come." So, I mean, I just think it's wonderful, you know. I mean, every day should be Star Wars Day. I already watched a bit of Star Wars this morning. You know, I already watched a bit. Your cousin got married on May the 4th and didn't realise. Yeah, well, you know. Lance has joined us. Hello, Lance. Mark is in, Martha and Terry and Loved Wolf. Thank you for joining us here on Backchannel. Tyler, Bumpy Aardvark. Great to hear from you. Terry, on the subject of climate change, says that's because everything has turned political now. Nobody can do anything just for the better of humankind. Well, it's going to come back to bite them on the ass, if you think about it, because all those that have been rubbishing climate change, including Donald Trump, an actual president who didn't even know what climate change was, and rolled back all of the environmental protections that were protecting the planet, rolled all of those back and allowed factories to dump their waste into the rivers and for smoke to be blown into the sky. He is responsible. And there's a very good chance that he could win the presidency again. And the temperatures will continue to rise. And life will become impossible. I really enjoyed you today. I'm Anthony Davis. Support the show by subscribing. Click the subscribe button on your Echo show. You can also leave a review at backchannel.tv. That's backchannel.tv. I'm here live every weekday from 9 o'clock Pacific. That's 12 o'clock Eastern. Come back tomorrow. Just say to your Echo, open Backchannel. That's open Backchannel. Coming up next is your pal Hal. Have a really good May the 4th.